Welcome to Leadership Launchpad Project. I'm Rob Calvarowski, and as always, the yang to my yin. Susan Hobson's here today. Susan, how are you?
I am so looking forward to this lake right now. You have no idea. The sun is shining, and it just feels wrong to be sitting at this desk right now working, although it doesn't really, because this never feels like work, does it, buddy?
Yeah, I mean, Susan, of course, we got to ask you. So last weekend you went to
Oh,
the Princeton reunion. So tell our
nice
folks
segue.
how that was.
It was incredible. Honestly, I am so in awe of how much this institution does to keep this community of ours together. And I mean, all the way to our oldest living class member who's 105 years old. They call them the old guard. But yeah, it was absolutely magical. And I'll tell you what was most magical about it was that I brought Brooklyn, my daughter, with me. And so seeing it all through her lens for the very first time, I have to say, I actually don't have words for how incredible it was.
May I
And you
ask
just sat her down in
what?
math like
Yeah.
three. So you should just get her rolling on integral calculus.
Oh yeah, mom's got to work a little harder because she's already there. She said she's going to Princeton. So here we go. Inga, what were you going to add to the mix?
I was curious what she found the most memorable for her in this journey. I'm sure it was very inspiring to go and meet all these people and places.
Yeah, I think it was a combination of the people. She couldn't believe how many people came back to celebrate. She couldn't believe like everybody was wearing orange and black and had all this team spirit. And then it was cute. She was like, "So is that Princeton, that building right there?" And I had to explain, "No, it's the math building, baby girl." And she's like, "Wait, what? They have buildings for all the different subjects?" So she didn't even have any type of concept of what university was until this last weekend. So I feel like her mind has been very much expanded with the possibilities of that next chapter, which is just so cool to watch play out as her mom. Yeah, but I divert. We're here to talk to Inga today. So, Rob, you want to introduce our guest?
Absolutely. Well, we have to start off with a quote,
Oh,
and I
that's
have
right.
one here from Greg Louganis, obviously well known as an Olympic gold medalist in diving, and he says, "Peak performance is meditation in motion."
Oh, good. It's so true. Or maybe we should ask our guest what she thinks
That's
is
right, and we're
it.
gonna ask our guest, obviously fellow Olympian, elite performance and leadership coach, and founder and CEO of O Founders, as well as the Elevating Leadership Institute. Inga Stasiulionyte is with us today. Inga, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. I'm so excited to be with both of you here, and also I am thrilled you mentioning this quote because my performance journey was defined by focused freedom. So this is like what also I think so. This quote represented meditation and movement.
Amazing. So tell us a little bit about that journey and those moments of focused freedom.
Mhm.
Yes, so my journey started with coach discovering me to have potential in becoming a great athlete. I had no idea what that meant and what javelin is. But he was so excited and in love with the sport, what he completely seduced me to keep coming back to practice, to try different exercises, to test out my limits. And then he really pushed me, and he was really good at that, not only training his athletes physically, but also mentally and emotionally. So in any competition I would come in, even how novice I was, he just instilled special confidence in me, where it's like, I am not winning yet, but watch me. You will know my name soon. So I thought that it was and now by reflecting, it was absolutely amazing how those losses didn't discourage me, because it was always a conversation about the growth, what we're doing in the practice, what we're fixing, what we're focusing on. So this is why even from that first competitions, my focus was like, one day it's a step-by-step journey, and then I will figure it out how to throw this thing super far. And then yes, I mean, I was just so blessed with this kind of coaching, and I had another luck when I was recruited to study at University of Southern California. I was also invited by given full scholarship to throw javelin at USC, and this is where my second luck struck, where I met another coach, Dan Lang, who had absolutely the same philosophies about how to raise the athletes. And to be honest, later on in the career, and now also working with professional athletes, I truly call it pure luck for me to have in presence with them and being trained by them, because it's even now I encourage rarity of those kind of philosophies, because usually it's always motivated by getting results achieved as fast as possible for them. Number one thing was developing characters, number two, and health. And only in number three position was results. But all their athletes actually succeeded quite well. And then what you just mentioned, Susan, about building that community, and it's really strong, that community, what they fostered. Both of the coaches we feel supported even today. So this is my beginnings in exploring human performance. It always was with the test of me in performing the biggest fields in the world with biggest pressures. And when I went to work for medical company as an analyst, this is where I saw what not everybody have this mental focus as
Mindset.
athletes have.
No kidding. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity, though, right? Surely there had to be some of that in the mix as well. I noticed you had some pretty progressive coaches along the gauntlet of your high performance athletic career. I gotta say that's kind of rare, right? Especially back when we were athletes in the game. So I'm curious, because one of the themes we love to explore on this show as former athletes ourselves is how all of that mindset for high performance that athletes cultivate parlays into big business and leadership. I'm curious, what did these new school progressive leaders teach you that inspired some of how you show up with corporate people today?
That parallels I needed to use right away in like first and second days of my work. As a student, when I arrived as a business analyst, I already started employing those Olympic athlete mindsets. Okay, what is the preparation? Where I could get the feedback if I'm on the right track or not in what I'm doing there, because it's my first days. I have no idea what work means. This
So
javelin
yeah.
practices what I attended. So I felt um, absolutely not knowing, no, clueless what I'm doing. I had a great education, what I could rely on, but that feedback was always missing for me, because I knew how fast and well I can thrive when I have a coach next to me, when I have that constant feedback, when I have this constant challenge, like, what do you feel? How is this for you? Let's test it. And when I realized that this is the structure what I'm thriving, this is what I started to create for myself in the workplace, but also for others. Because my first project, what happened was a company wanted me to develop the strategy for growth, for efficiency, and I did. I did the interviews, I explored through the company, what are the biggest bottlenecks, what are the biggest opportunities. And everybody loved my presentation and said, okay, now implement it. It's going to be so easy. The hard part is done. And then I realized what nobody wants to do anything new.
So true.
And then this is where it started. my exploration, how I can bring that athlete mindset, why athletes every single day in practice challenge themselves to do something new. And then what stops in the work environment, and how can I create that environment where people would be actually excited to do something new? So as to your question, it's directly was transferred, because that's the only thing what I knew what led me to success. So I right away started to implement it in the workplace, and it took a while to actually
I'm
foster
sure.
that environment, but at least I had the structure.
I'd love you to expand on this, right? And it's the stats, right, of implementing new projects or transformation is basically like 70-80% of them fail. So how did you drive people, or how do you get people to start changing and doing things new?
Mhm.
Such a great topic and question. And this is, I think, so where the coaching, why I became the coach comes in, because as a strategist developing beautiful theories, it's really exciting. And this is what I thrived on in the beginning, like stats and analyst, analyzing and numbers. But then I saw, what's the point if it's not implemented in the, but I realized also what usually, and now especially, what usually people know what they need to do, what is the next step. However, the biggest stoppers are fears. The biggest stoppers are lack of confidence. So by me being really attentive to know what inspires people to take that challenge, go through that pain of change, and then because pain is constant, or in presence or in doing something new, but how we can um, shape that story, who we keep becoming and what we are letting go to become that new, because by doing something new we become new too. So by discovering that inspiration, but also really looking attentively, what are those stops, what are those fears, how this person is functioning, what are the core concepts for that person. So this is where that deep attentive work becomes, where we experiment what that next step would be, because I love results.
Yeah.
So working on those results through coaching, this is what I found the fastest and easiest way to do.
And when working on the leader's mindset, what do you feel like? You mentioned fear, but let's go a little bit deeper into this. What do you feel like really is stopping our leaders from stepping into doing that work themselves, right? Because I feel like that's half the battle. The leader is the model that carries the most weight. So when working with leaders, how do you help them get past all of that resistance?
It's really similar and close to athlete's fear, is to fail,
Mm.
is focus on the results, right? So usually whatever got us to the place, this is what we rely on so strongly. And what got us to that success, what we currently have, it was exploration, right? But when we finally developed the story about ourselves, oh, this is how I'm successful and what success means to me, we cling to that super strong,
Mhm.
and we don't want to lose it. So any new step, it becomes the fear of unknown of that success. So kind of developing the story where our ego with our self-image is a little bit more flexible with trying something new. So this is why we introduce a lot of new language. Yesterday actually I had an amazing last coaching call with a surgeon, and surgeons are quite similar to any other leaders, but there are even more really high level cognitive thinkers, like everything has to be logic, very explanatory. And I was asking him, so how was our coaching? What feedback would you give to me? And how you developed yourself through this experience? And he said, like, I am really good at going deep into the core of the issue. However, I always expected you, and you did ask me, how do you feel about it? So we explored why this question is so important, especially when it seems like our work depends on the cerebral logical steps. But knowing also how much emotions and feelings drive those decisions, and then fears also mislead us in making uh, good decisions, because they become usually desperate decisions. And introducing and actually showing him how much he developed his language and understanding of alignment of emotions, mental focus, and the capabilities to go forward and construct those more accurate, and this is what I call focused, intentional steps going forward. And this is why I like also sports psychology, performance coaching, because it aligns not only our tactics and strategy of the next thing, but also who we are and what our limits are, and then at which points we're actually limitless. So how to keep aligning that beautiful combination. I love it.
What points are we limitless?
Whoa. Yeah.
How would you answer before I go into that?
For me, it's moments in pure self energy.
What does
And
self
so,
energy mean for you? Because it's such a beautiful concept with what you're touching.
yeah, it's where there's no fear about anything, and it's just pure. It's sort of what I guess what Greg Louganis said. It's sort of like, I wouldn't say it's necessarily meditation, but it's sort of like this element of when I'm in it, I feel tranquil inside. And then I also feel, yeah, like I feel the inspiration and the purpose, but there's no, like, there's not that chatter of, oh, you should do this better or whatever. Yeah.
Such a beautiful definition, and definitely I can relate to that. But before I have my answer, Susan, what about you? What that means to you, limitless?
I think it is flow for me when I'm showing up and I'm fully engaged and fully present and fully immersed in whatever it is that I'm doing in that period of time. It's probably when I feel my best and most expansive in terms of the possibilities of what it is I can do in my capacity. And to me, that's when I'm hooked up and aligned, right, with my unconditioned self, my authentic core being, not doing. Right? So, yeah, that's how I think of probably where I'm at my best in my peak state.
You almost quoted Eric Fromm, his development about wholeness of the person. It's not what we're having, it's not what we're doing, but this is accepting what we are. We are what we are,
Mhm.
and then being in that state. And it's nice and interesting philosophical conversation what we have with the clients, because one of the clients said, like, I don't want to accept how I am because I want to be better.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
without accepting, without seeing ourselves and others where we at, we cannot make that next step of growth, because we're always resisting ourselves. So we're wasting a lot of energy and focus and time in resisting what we are, instead of actually taking the aligned next step. So limitless, it is what you, Susan, mentioned, flow is usually achieved to things what we practice and what we're familiar with, right? Something new what we're doing, it's similar to flow, but the concept of high performance is a grind. But also knowing what are the stages where we at and aligning ourselves the best to the environment, what it is. So intentionally knowing how to set ourselves up to different situations and different us, because we're always different throughout the day and situations, and knowing how to have that alignment is where I feel like we can intentionally get to those limitless places. But also it's okay to realize and know when we have limits.
Let's talk about that, because I could see a huge part of your coaching methodology really leans hard into this whole concept of feedback. So when you're working with that in a coaching context, because clearly we respect the model of coaching so much as high performing athletes, right? Because we don't even know what growth looks like if you don't have somebody telling you what's happening behind the play or helping to map out, right, some next level challenges in terms of where you're going to find your edges, you know? So in the context of coaching a corporate business leader, how is that feedback cycle different? How do you approach that?
It is like day and night. I'm sure you encounter leaders saying how lonely and alone they're feeling, right? And it is completely opposites in sports. The higher performing athlete, the bigger team and support team what they have, and the bigger and higher position executive is, the less people they surround themselves with for feedback, for help. Yes, they have feedback from other executives. However, it's always it's like double sword, right? Because everybody are dependent from each other financially, dependent by different intentions. So finding that support, absolutely, I feel it's necessary, and this is what I'm trying to introduce. You don't have to be alone. So if you feel alone and lonely, there's a huge opportunity of growth and performance. What could happen when you have that system of feedback for yourself, where you honestly and openly, and actually for that doctor, where the huge shift in our coaching happened, it was when he was in the beginning expecting me to say something, and he was always testing from his lens if it's right or wrong. But the minute where I was keep pressing, it's not the coaching for me to tell you what to do or have your structures. So then finally he decided to share what was pressing him tremendously. This is when we got to juices of that next step of his growth. When you have the opportunity to hear yourself honestly and openly, and especially share those thoughts with somebody whom you feel secure, and having exactly the same intentions for going forward, magic happens for everybody. I mean, strategic growth, this is what coaches create.
Yeah, that's why I'm always so surprised in a corporate context that feedback sometimes only happens annually or every 90 days, right?
360 surveys, which you still with surveys, it was interesting too, because I was reading 360s from my client, and half of the respondents said like the best leader what we ever had. Other half said like this person needs to improve leadership.
How? What a polarity in terms of perspectives on that one. Wow. How do you approach that big a gap?
This showed me what with certain people, this leader was able to communicate and show his capabilities as a leader, and for others, he was not connecting at all. So, and that was with the executives who actually were saying, but his close team really admired him. So this is what we've worked with that leader, is to have that presence where other high executives would see that leadership in him, even amongst them.
Inga, I'd love to kind of harken back to when you mentioned that one of your folks said, hey, I don't want to like myself. I want to like change and get better. And, even Susan and I know when I started working with Susan, it was the same thing. It was like, I don't care. I just want to get results fast. How do you like, how do you either talk about or open your clients' eyes to those kind of resistance towards, the self-acceptance or that piece of getting into flow?
This is a really great question, and this is what we work in understanding different situation requires different kind of approach. We need to deliver results now, but we also need to have a strategy, right? So we need to create that understanding what is the most important, and then when we are performing and when we're training, it's exactly as athletes, like we need to compete even though maybe we are not we're coming after the sickness, or we didn't figure out our techniques yet. So we approaching again how we're approaching those performance moments, and then when we actually leave the space and place for training, and training means leadership skills for the leader, but also training their team properly to develop themselves, because leader is defined by their teams, by not by only results, because as in sports, results can like COVID can happen again, certain crashes of the market, right? Which is not expected. So results can be shown lower even though you performed really well. It wouldn't represent your efforts or wouldn't represent your capabilities. It's just unfortunate events, but how to keep the right kind of focus going forward for yourself and the team, what is sustainable. And this is what why I started the conversation about limits and limitless, because this is what I love the most in about understanding our capabilities and how in a healthy and a sustainable way to push our limits. So when the push happens, it's a growth, but not an injury. So this is this intricate space where we need to be super aware with.
Love it. Inga, what do our leaders need to be doubling down on in their growth game to be limitless in 2024 and beyond?
I think so. The key is always understanding the basics, the core foundations for every leader in the team. So this is their relationship with themselves, relationship with others, and what competition means for us in general. What it means in the terms of winning, falling, failing, or growing. And then when we're talking about relationship with ourselves, is it like all about us? This is what I see dichotomy of leadership, or they're becoming like super directive and it's all about my way or highway, or is it, or it's about altruism, like everything for everyone, but not, and losing myself as a leader or themselves. So how to find that self-aware point where in the right moments you lead, and in the right moments you are led as a leader. So and then relationship with others would be, it's a conversation about dependency again, like is it how team is dependent on a leader, how team is independent, and how they are actually interdependent So that's a key to keep developing that interdependent focus, that focus of awareness of self and the focus on growth.
Amazing. And Inga, if there's anything else you could tell our community of leaders, what would that be?
What we already spoke about, I feel like it's such a key for leadership, and especially when a lot of changes are happening, a lot of unknown and uncertain, is how important to keep creating right kind of support system and environment for themselves. I believe it should be key focus for every performer, the same as athletes. Like, but what you, Susan also mentioned, you cannot imagine as an athlete without having support system for themselves, for the recovery, for the training, for the techniques, for the physical improvements, and then you have like many coaches actually for yourself. So I feel like those who realize of that power, because many leaders also think what they should solve everything on their own, and this is what marks their success or their professionalism. However, actually, it's opposite.
And Inga, I have to pull out the big guns while we have you in studio and ask you our favorite question here at the Leadership Launchpad Project. What do you want the legacy of all this incredible work that you're doing in big business to bring all this Olympic level intel, right, into our professional games?
For me, it is now more and more focus. It's not per se having some kind of legacy, but it's giving that experience for people of connectiveness or that interdependency. And this is why I was inspired to create Elevating Leadership Institute, and we are to create those environments and networks for leaders. There's too many conversations I had with my clients, how much they involved in that work performance, but they stuck in the bubble in their companies, created the environment and infrastructure, so they don't have a chance or time to network, to see how other leaders live, what fears they having, what successes lead them. So connecting that experience, because I feel like leaders carrying huge pressure to perform, and they are not given or not having the circumstances to thrive at their highest capabilities. So it's always putting out the fires instead of actually, when you come to perform as an athlete, what we talked about, that self-energy, that flow, where you have that actual pure joy of that work, what you've done, and in the most pressured and complicated situation, you see yourself being able to handle it with your team. I feel like it's the best what we can create for each other, is that ability for all of us to feel that strength in each other to tackle the hardest problems what life provides, and life provides a lot of problems.
The
Amazing.
disruption
And
is real.
yeah, it's
At all
always
times.
real.
Yeah.
Entropy is not stopping.
That's
No,
right.
no.
And for folks out there, if you want to connect with Inga, I've dropped her LinkedIn in the podcast notes, as well as you can check out elevatingleadershipinstitute.com and ofounders.com. Inga, is there anywhere else you want folks to find you?
Come to LinkedIn. Let's chat. We're creating a lot of opportunities for people to share their stories, their challenges, and their opportunities, what to explore. So I feel like community and then finding yourself in that growth, it's the most powerful. And this is how we also got connected, which we can enjoy that benefit.
That's right. It's always a benefit. And for folks out there, obviously, for executive coaching, leadership development, keynote speaking, and more, head on over to elitehighperformance.com, as well as share the show with any leaders in your life. Susan, where do you want to leave folks with this week?
I just love talking with our athletes who totally get the method to the madness. And you heard it from Inga, the Olympic athlete herself. The more successful the athlete ascends in their growth game, the more coaches and support systems they have all around them. So why here in 2024 is leadership still so lonely? We have cracked this code in the context of high performance sports. We're just a little slow to integrate it on the business side, it seems. But yeah, if this is you and you are resonating with some of that aspect of the interview where Inga was asking or talking about feeling lonely, let's go. Who's on your A team? Like that, let this be your call and your inspiration to go out there and find a coach, at the very least, to get that party started. How about you, sir?
Yeah. And for me, I want to just land on the feedback space. And obviously, this week in our group locker rooms, we did our module on feedback. And many of the folks in there, it was this discussion about, well, do I hold them for my annual review or 90-day review, or how does this work? And even some folks were saying, I don't know some of the things that my good performers need to do better. And so I always give them the feedback, it's all good.
Oh, no.
And I think this is the piece of having a coach as well as having folks that are around you, that especially when you're at these high levels of business, you don't get feedback.
Mhm,
It doesn't exist.
mhm.
And so cultivating elements in your life that have these moments of feedback are going to take you to that next level. And that's the only way you can get there. And so, folks out there, get that feedback, get that growth. Let's make it happen. Inga, thank you so much for joining us this week.
Oh, it was my pleasure.
Everyone
Thank-
listening, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you all next week.
Bye, everyone.